Hello, humans of the world. It's me, Ellie Krug, on the lovely AM 950, broadcasting to you sort of live, well, the day yesterday, from scenic Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Ellie 2.0 Radio is the name of the show. We talk about idealism and idealists, and you happen to be talking to a hopeless idealist. Hopeless in the sense of I will never, ever not be an idealist. So there you go. We've got a great show that you will enjoy learning about. That includes the big interview with Sondra Samuels, who's going to talk about an incredible project named The First 1,000 Days. But let me begin with our featured idealist this week, Congressional Representative Katie Porter, who represents California's 45th District. And if the name doesn't ring a bell, okay, maybe this will. In congressional hearings, she's the one with the whiteboard. Or she was. I'll get into that in a second. Who starts writing down numbers as witnesses testify. And then she uses the numbers against those witnesses. She happens to also be a lawyer. She happens to be doing, when I used to try lawsuits, guess what I did? I didn't use a whiteboard. I used one of those big pads of paper that you'd put on an easel and you'd flip the paper from page to page. That's exactly what I did when witnesses testified. Here is the story on Katie Porter. And she is literally from our neighborhood. She was born and grew up in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Remember, I'm a former Iowan. I'm an Iowan in my heart until I die, but now I'm a Minnesotan as well. Fort Dodge is and actually where Katie Porter was born and grew up. It's a town where I tried actually multiple lawsuits back when I did practice law. Katie Porter's father was a farmer turned banker, and her mother excelled at quilting. She built some kind of a national reputation about being a quilter. But like so many of our leaders, Katie was able to obtain a gold-plated education. She went to Phillips Academy for high school, Yale University undergraduate, and Harvard Law School. Parenthetically, it's sad that we don't have more leaders from basic public high schools who didn't rub elbows with rich people beginning at age 14. I'm just saying that. I really am. Nothing against Katie Porter. You know, knock yourself out in getting that kind of education. But boy, if we had a whole lot more quote-unquote normal people from normal quote-unquote backgrounds, I wonder how the world would be different. Still, Katie Porter did do some things to earn her stripes. For example, she clerked for a federal judge and later headed a project for U.S. bankruptcy judges that dealt with business bankruptcy. And she learned how about consumer rights and remedies in doing that. After teaching at various law schools, which included a 6-year stint at the University of Iowa Law School, a place where I both spoken and studied in their law library writing briefs, Katie Porter ended up in Orange County, California, teaching law school. Along the way, she authored a legal textbook about consumer law. In 2012, when Porter was just 38 years old, then California Attorney General Kamala Harris, we know that name, Veep Kamala, appointed Katie Porter to be the state's independent agent to monitor a $25 billion mortgage settlement stemming from the 2008-2009 financial crisis, Great Recession. So think about this. You got this person born in Iowa, who mainly is a law school professor, who then, not even 40 years old, gets appointed to oversee, to be the monitor for how $25 billion is going to be spent to help make people whole from the financial crisis relative to mortgages. Somewhere along the way, Porter developed plans to run for public office. It helps that she interned for Chuck Grassley in college. Wrong party, but still good experience. And it also helped that one of her law school professors was Elizabeth Warren. In fact, Porter and Warren developed such a close relationship that Katie Porter named her daughter Betsy after Elizabeth Warren. I guess that's guaranteed to get Elizabeth Warren's attention. And in 2016, Porter advised Hillary Clinton on housing policy. Now, in 2018, while living in Orange County, Porter ran against a two-term Republican. Now, in some respects, this was like really crazy because the 45th district in California, which was created in 1953, had never, ever elected a Democrat. It was 65 years of Republican domination. But Porter went out, took on the two-term incumbent, and Porter won. It's also a sign that Orange County, long a Republican stronghold, turning purple. It sure helped that Katie Porter labeled herself as different, as someone who refused PAC money. Once in the House, Katie Porter was appointed to the House Financial Services Committee. Now, this is where I'll let some Wikipedia text give you the best, because it's easier to read it than me to paraphrase it. So this is what Wikipedia says under the heading of congressional questioning, because that's really how Katie Porter's idealism shows up. Quote, Porter has earned a reputation for tough and pointed questioning of officials during congressional hearings, often using visual aids such as whiteboards. She attracted attention for her questioning on the House Financial Services Committee. In March 2019, her questioning caught Wells Fargo CEO Tim Sloan contradicting what his corporate lawyers were arguing in court in statements that he had previously made pledging transparency were corporate puffery, according to documents lawyers submitted. In April 2019, Porter drew attention for a questioning of J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon about how a Chase bank teller should make up for a $567 shortfall between her monthly budget and her paycheck. So Jamie Dimon, multi-millionaire, if not billionaire, Chase was requiring their bank tellers to to pay out of their pocket for any shortfalls. And tell me, look, people make mistakes. That's part of the cost of doing business. In May 2019, Porter asked Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson about REOs, real estate-owned properties, which Carson confused with Oreo cookies. You may remember that one. And she also asked Consumer Financial Protection Bureau Director Kathy Kraninger to solve basic math problems about annual percentage rates on payday loans, with Kraninger declined to do so. Now, that's unquote from Wikipedia. All of that is great, but as I researched Katie Porter, I came to find out that she is no longer on the House Financial Services Committee. And now I'm going to go to a piece by David Dayen, Dayen, in February, dated February 1, 2001, in the American Prospect website. And it's titled, Why Katie Porter Isn't on the House Financial Services Committee. And you know what Dayen believes, and it sounds right? The House Financial Services Committee is chaired by Maxine Waters. And we've seen Maxine Waters on TV before. Maxine Waters is also, I believe, from California. Maxine Waters apparently isn't happy with Katie Porter because Katie Porter's taken the limelight. She doesn't like Katie Porter pulling out that whiteboard. And in fact, Maxine Waters criticized her for doing that and told her not to do it on multiple occasions. Katie Porter, of course, being Katie Porter, she just continued to do it. But when the most recent congressional folks entered Congress, they had to do some realignment on the committees, and there were a number of seats that were lost. It is unheard of for somebody who is on one of the high committees, and that would include the House Financial Services Committee. It is almost unheard of that they would be kicked off the committee because of a realignment due to the election. Usually people make space one way or another. But that's exactly what happened. Katie Porter got kicked off. She's no longer on there anymore. You're no longer going to see her with her whiteboard, questioning people, trying to protect consumers. That's because Maxine Waters didn't want her on there. The other tidbit about Katie Porter is that she is a survivor of domestic violence. She's divorced from her husband now, but before that divorce, she had been the subject of physical abuse and verbal abuse from him. And in my book, that makes her all the more a person to be representative of other humans. She knows what it means to be at the receiving end of things that are not good. So, Katie Porter, an idealist. Read up on her and learn more about what's going on in Congress and how even the politics of Congress take away some of our idealists. But I have a feeling that Katie Porter, she'll be around. Don't worry. She's not going to go away. She'll find a way to have her voice heard. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for now. When we come back, we're going to do a great interview with Sondra Samuels, and then we'll go to my C block. I hope you're enjoying the show. Thanks so very much. And we're back on Ellie 2.0 radio on AM 950. Katie Porter, like I said, check her out and pay attention to her. She's going places. And now for the big interview, I have somebody else who's not only going places, has gone places. I have Sondra Samuels here, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Northside Achievement Zone on the line. Sondra, are you there?
I am here, Ellie. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks so very much for being on Ellie 2.0 radio. I am just thrilled to have you here. And Sondra, I just got to tell you something right off the bat. You might not know this. I'd be shocked if you did. You and I have something in common.
What is that?
We were both born in Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, get out of here. Are you serious?
I am serious. Absolutely. Born in Newark, lived in Sayreville for 11 years, and then got transported as a kid in 1968 to Iowa.
Wow. Isn't that something?
That is something. What? But I'm having you on here not to talk about our Jersey roots, although I'm sure we could have some really great conversations.
Yes. That's what I want to talk about, but okay.
Well, okay. I've already told you I'm going to have you on more than once. Sondra.
Okay, cool.
You know, NAZ, the North Side Achievement Zone, is a wonderful entity, and maybe we'll be able to touch on this, okay? Mm-hmm, but the reason I want you on the show today is that you happen to be a board member of the Itasca Project. And
right, on the task force, Ellie.
Okay, on the task force, okay.
Yeah, on the task force. Mm-hmm.
And so, and you are on the, and you are involved with this project called the First 1,000 Days, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
And is that the task force you're referring to?
Yes, it
is.
First 1,000 Day Task Force, yep.
Okay, all right. And, you know, when I first got word about the first 1,000 days, I wanted to have somebody come on and talk about it, okay, because it's so critical. But, Sondra, could you first, let's let the audience know, what is the Itasca Project? Because I'm sure many people have no idea about it.
Yeah, well, the Itasca Project is a project that is enviable from other states, their perspective. And I know because I work with a lot of communities around the country. It's a coalition of about 70 business leaders and from 70 organizations committed to really important projects that really matter to the long-term well-being of our region, right? They love the Twin Cities region. And they have stepped up in so many different ways in unusual ways for CEOs, you know, and other business leaders to do. And it's been an honor for me to work with them. I think that they're serious about making a difference, and you just do not see this in every region and every state. You just don't. Right.
And is the Itasca Project, is it a national thing, or is it just germane to Minnesota?
That's us.
Okay, that's us.
Yep, that's us.
That's what I thought. When you talk about 70 businesses, these are 70 Minnesota entities, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
All right.
With a real focus on our region, you know, and again, long-term livability and health and well-being, and I've had personal experiences with them responding after Jamar Clark was murdered by police years ago.
Yep.
I had a bunch of Itasca members who would come to the lower level of the Northside Achievement Zone, and we kind of worked through what it would look like to do something proactive, not in response to, but to actually change the way our community is related to in terms of jobs and, workforce and livability, all that good stuff. Anyway.
Right. No. I mean, the Twin Cities and Minnesota generally, broad statement, good place to live. Particularly for white collar people. By the way, Sondra, you don't know this also. I refer to white people as white color, COLOR people.
Okay. Yes.
And the reason for that is that most white people don't believe that white's a color. They believe that it's normal or base. My audience has heard this from me multiple times. And so, but so Minnesota.
I love that, Ellie, by the way. I love that.
Well, we got to get people thinking. And so Minnesota, Twin Cities, generally great place to live if you're a white color. If you're not white color, not so good. And there are real challenges. And that gets us to this first 1,000 days project. And can you explain to the audience what is the first 1,000 days project?
Yeah, the first 1,000 days is a project that, again, focused on the health and long-term well-being of our community, and we acknowledging that no entity is greater than our babies and their development, especially doing what we need to do as adults, because this is the future of our cities, right? Our state.
Right.
Doing what we need to do so that they have the best development, brain development, life, development all the way around. And what all the science, this is not disputable. This is not Sondra's opinion. All the science says that the brain's architecture, and this is a different thing, Ellie. Before we used to say that 80% of the brain was developed by the time a child was 3. And of course, full development doesn't happen until 25. And I have kids who are 25, 21, and 20. And so I know that to be true on the other end. But on the babies end, it's not that it's fully developed, that 80% by 3. It's that the architecture is laid down.
Right.
The foundation upon which the house will be built. Yep. That does happen, and the first 3 years is the first 1,000 days of a child's life, and so it's so critical, Ellie. And if we know that this is what shapes life outcomes, why wouldn't we, as a community, if we're serious about the long-term health and well-being of our state, why wouldn't we then do what we needed to do to make sure that would come into reality? And so for these business people to say that's important, like that's like so important that we're going to spend a couple years focused on that. And it's just amazing. But that's what the first 1,000 years is. It's a way to really introduce to our community. It's a way to introduce to businesses and employers the importance of those first 1,000 days, to the child's future and to our future, our collective future. And so I think it's like incredibly powerful.
Great. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, all of this kind of thinking went into Head Start, way back when the Great Society was created in the mid-'60s and all of that. And, of course, how are we doing with that? And so that and I'm coming up soon here on a break, Sondra. So I'm going to give you a question, and then you can begin to answer it. And that is, okay, so you're bringing the attention to the employers in in Minnesota, and greater Twin Cities metro about the first 1,000 days. But what else? What else are you asking them to do?
So here's two things.
Hold on. Now I'm going to interrupt you. Okay, sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
We got to take. I told you before we started, but hold that, and we'll come back. Okay, all right, listeners. We've been speaking, barely speaking. I'm just telling you, I'd want to speak to Sondra for like 6 hours, but we're barely started speaking to Sondra Samuels about the Itasca Project, its 1,000 Days Initiative. When we come back from our break, we'll talk with her more. If you like what you hear, visit my website at elliekrug.com. Email me at LEJ. Remember the J. LEJkrug at Gmail. I love hearing from you. We'll be back in a sec. And we're back. Ellie 2.0 Radio on AM 950. You're listening to me, Ellie Krug. I've been speaking we started down the road of a phenomenal interview with Sondra Samuels, talking about the first 1,000 days. It's a project of the Itasca Project. It's a task force to try and educate everyone, but particularly employers and thought leaders about the importance of the first 1,000 days in the life of a human. And Sondra, before we took our break, I asked you, apart from, raising awareness about the importance of the first 1,000 days, and boy, I could just go on with you about that. What are you specifically asking the business community to do? I mean, what do you have like action plan for them?
Yeah, so they have to put their money where their mouth is, and meaning. So part of the awareness is that you have a whole campaign, because people do not know the importance, on by and large, the importance of the first 1,000 days and what you do in those days to build the brain, because the brain is a muscle, and you parents actually build it. The reading to, talking to, playing with, pointing things out, the attachment. So it's not just, the first 1,000 days are important. They're so important, and here's what you can do at home every day. And so that's one. The other one is making sure their policies are aligned with their value, that the first 1,000 days kids need their families, and so they might be working, but they're looking at paternity and maternity leave policies, right?
Okay.
The flexibility with which people work, the compensation, childcare. So all of that becomes the concern of the employer.
Okay, but
right. And I know when I was 55, I'm 55 now. I know when I was working earlier, it was like, can we find a place to pump milk, please? And so it's like making your place a place where the information is, a place where compensation is, leave, and also just the environment in the workplace. So
Sondra, I'm sitting here. And I am absolutely familiar with the disparities, all right? That children of color are reading at, third grade level at about 38%, somewhere around there, and white color kids are reading, reading at that level at 68, 69% of white color kids are doing that. Yeah. And I'm also thinking, and now this is a very broad brush, okay, but I'm as you're talking about this, I'm like, well, of course the Target corporate will get this, the General Mills corporate will get this. Right. But what about the McDonald's, where we've got people working not one, but 2 minimum wage jobs. Right. And it's both parents working 2 minimum wage jobs in order to just pay the darn bills. How do we break through that? And how does that resonate with, a franchise owner, a McDonald's or, a Wendy's or Denny's or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I constantly talked about as a task force member was that how many of you employers here actually have people from my neighborhood? I live in North Minneapolis.
Yep.
And the profile of disproportionate portion of the community that's low income and black.
Right.
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 And so it's like, because if you're not reaching Latinx community, African American community, and Asian, so on, that are low income, then we actually potentially with this initiative will grow the gap, right? Because the people who already have will get more and more information. The people who don't will have less. So anyway, two things. One, the employers that have bought into this, they know that their job is to be ambassadors and to get out there with their colleagues. So franchise owners are colleagues with some of the employers at the table. And that's been the beauty that I want to say, Ellie, of Itasca, is that they do outreach. So I know I have a peer group, they have a peer group. So that's one. They're reaching out. It's not just I get it. I got to make sure my network of employers get it. So that's one. The other is when they can't impact directly in that way, it's also to have a community component where they are for communities like mine, that they are actually reaching in to the small businesses in North Minneapolis, for example, who might not be at that table, and actually supporting them. And this is all, so, this is, it's relatively new. But I got to tell you, for it to work, and I know the people at the table know this, it is leaning in also with resources around community and small business owners so that they can do some of the same things for their employees, as well as have a community campaign and, working with, people like me, Northside Achievement Zone, who, and we have a Power to the Parent radio program that comes on Sundays. I know they're getting to different communities. So it's a both and approach. Well,
but let me throw another question, and that is this. And it's a broad question. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get there unless we can convince the white collar person out in Thief River Falls that what is happening in Minneapolis is important to him or her, and or that it's okay to spend X tax dollars that they're sending to St. Paul for that.
Right.
I mean, how many times? I mean, Sondra, I'm sure you at least keep some finger on the pulse of the legislature. How many times do things that are important to all humans, regardless of the color of the skin, for example, police reform, how many times are they getting blocked by people who are representatives from greater Minnesota who think, well, that's not my problem. I don't want to spend it. My constituents don't want to spend the dollars. So how are we going to, this first 1,000 days thing, I mean, this applies to black, brown, Asian, indigenous, white people too, white colored people. How do are you working on getting that message to greater Minnesota as well as the Twin Cities, or is this just a Twin City focused thing?
Yeah, so boy, I tell you, Ellie, I have a little different perspective. So I don't think that our challenge is outstate Minnesota and what they will support or not. I think that's part of it, right? This is a whole countrywide thing. I see a greater challenge of people who call themselves my allies and who are more liberal and who go and vote against changing arbitration rules, for example, that allow a police chief, and this has happened like for decades now, Ellie. Yeah. A police chief sees a Chauvin. The city is paying out money in lawsuits, and the chief fires the police officer, and 50% of the time, because of arbitration rules, they have to rehire him. Yep. It wasn't when that went right after George Floyd was murdered, and it went back and it went to the Capitol, and they voted on changing, because it has to be a state change. Yep. Voting on changing arbitration rules. People in Ellie, Minnesota weren't tracking that and calling and saying, don't change that rule, because that wasn't going to cost them any money. It was the legislators, the elected officials' job to change that rule, and they did not do it. And I tell you, Ellie, that one of the greatest blockers of it was the union. A bunch of unions came together and said no, because if and I'm a union baby, so I'm not. But it's like we have to start calling on even our friends, who themselves feel as though they have something they'll lose. What do the union have to use? Oh, well, if they can no longer have to rehire because of the arbitration rules, Chauvin back onto the force, which a police chief has to do 50% of the time, then the next thing might be coming for me and my union.
Correct. It may be coming my way for the plumbers union or the Teamsters. Right. Yeah, no.
So this is Ellie, and so this is so I'm just taking it out of greater Minnesota. It becomes a human thing when I think that I am going to lose, and that this has been white supremacy. We all can't win. And if I think I'm going to lose because my taxes will go up, because more, I'll have to send my white kids to a black community to get educated. Oh my gosh! Well, then when it costs me, I'm not willing to do it.
Sondra, again, I mean, I could talk with you for 6 hours, and maybe you and I should schedule 6 Zoom sessions off the radio. For me, the fundamentals, so just hear me out, okay, because my listeners are going to hear this in the last block following. For me, the fundamental problem, and until we get past this problem, I don't think we're going to fix anything. The fundamental problem is why people prefer white color skin over all other skin colors.
Amen, Ellie.
And Sondra.
Amen.
Sondra, we can. I mean, I see that. I mean, we're trying to push $500 million into projects, for new community centers, for early child care. All of those things are important, but they're not gonna work until we deal with the issue. Until we deal with the issue of why white skin color is favored. And what that is going to take is getting white color people of other skin colors, people who are other, in our society, in a room talking to each other about their respective experiences, fears, wants, desires, loves, and learning that they're all alike.
Yeah.
Sondra, who's doing that work? Where's that work going to happen?
Yeah. So, the neat thing is that it's happening in pockets of our country. And people are, the wonderful thing about COVID and what we're seeing is, Ellie, I think more than any other time, pockets of people, and pockets add up, are starting to understand our interconnection. And I do thank God for smartphones, that because what the Black community has always known, that there is a different system of policing for if you have white color versus if you have Black color.
Right.
There's a different system of policing. We've known that. But the world didn't know it, and white-colored people didn't know. I love that, Ellie, by the way. They didn't know it until the smartphone. So no matter how much I used to tell my white friends about the discrimination or racism I face, they always, well, maybe you're reading into that. Maybe it really wasn't that bad.
No,
maybe,
yeah,
right? And so with the thing, they couldn't say, maybe he didn't have his knee on the neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds.
Oh.
Right? Till you even have conservative, homophobic, hateful Pat Robertson. I don't know if you heard this.
Yeah, no, I heard it last night.
I heard
it. Yep, I heard it. Yep.
Now it's bad when Pat Robertson talks about the police.
Sondra, I'm going to have to interrupt you because we're running up against the end here. Sondra, can I ask you, and you got to give it to me quickly, all right? Mm-hmm. What made you an idealist? Because you are one. My friend, if it's okay if I call you that.
Yes, you can call me that.
What made you an idealist?
Knowing some of our history, and that love is the only thing. And every time I look back, Ellie, it's like to the degree that humans have evolved and we've moved toward love more, it was because of other idealists who believed in that. And they sacrificed their lives for you and I to be on this radio show right now.
Yep.
And so we can't do any less to continue to bend the arc of the universe towards justice.
Oh my God. Okay, Sondra, I'm going to have you back on the show, assuming you're willing, okay? Because I want to talk about your work with the Northside Achievement Zone. Thank you for being on Ellie 2.0 Radio. Thank you for what you're doing in the world, okay?
Yes, Ellie, thank you.
And, let me know if I can help in any way, okay? And we'll have you back in a few months, okay? And we'll talk about Naz. And in the meantime, hang in there, okay?
Yes, and Ellie, know that you are now have a special place as my sister.
Oh, that Newark thing helps, doesn't it? Okay,
Yes,
all right.
that's
Well,
okay. All right, call me anytime.
okay, all right. Well, thanks so
Okay.
very much, Sondra. I really appreciate it. All right. And all right, listeners, when we come back, we will do my C block, where I'm going to talk a little bit on what we've already talked about, but then I'm going to talk about an act of kindness, an allyship that happened to me yesterday. All right, you're listening to me, Ellie Krug, and Ellie 2.0. We'll be back in a second. Thanks. And we're back. AM 950. Sondra Samuels. I literally could have talked to her for 6 hours, and maybe I'll end up doing that eventually. But she's someone that we need. I mean, she's making things happen, and we need that. So we're in my C block right now. I'm going to talk about two things. And before I talk about anything else, I just want to say some names to you, because now we really need to get serious. I was laughing around with Sondra, but let's talk about some serious stuff for just a couple of minutes. 3 names. Lieutenant Karen Nazario, Adam Toledo, Dante Wright. Those are 3 names that I had no idea about this time last week. I had no idea about any of those 3 people. The 3 black people, 2 of them are dead, and one of them emotionally traumatized, probably for the rest of his life, because police officers want to have power. We're in a world right now in America that policing is about total domination and control. Now, let's also make sure that I make clear to you this, all right? I believe in the police. I believe that policing is needed. I believe that police officers, for the most part, are really good people. I believe generally, okay, that policing is an institution of great value in America. However, it is often a culture of total dominance and control. And I get part of that because that is about their personal safety, but I do not get, and I do not understand why you have to always squash, suffocate, drown out, over-yell, impose great strength on people who are just asking, why have you stopped me? Why are you doing this? Why have you pulled me over? And it is that culture of domination and control. It is that absolute culture that is killing us. Mainly, it's killing a lot of black people, but it's killing some white-collar people. But it is killing all of America because it is affecting our spirits. It's affecting our mental health. I mean, my God, 3 names since you heard my voice on the radio last time. We cannot sustain this. And much of it is because the white-collar skin is feared far less than any other skin color. And as you heard me talk with Sondra about this, until we start having those conversations of why white skin color is favored, nothing will stick. Okay. You'll hear me continue to come back to that, about the need for us to have conversations. I want to relate something that good happened, some compassion yesterday. I am a CVS pharmacy person. I mean, that's my pharmacy. Yesterday, I went to the pharmacy in Chaska. Chaska Target has a CVS. I don't have this person's permission to use her name, so I'm just going to call her Annie. I went up. There's a script that I need in part. Well, I need because I'm transgender, and this particular script costs a lot of money. And I did not think it very well because I had happened to be in Target for something else. I'm like, okay, well, it's probably time for this script. And I went up there, and Annie came to help me, and we started down the road to getting it refilled. And I said, hold on, wait a minute. I said, I needed to go get. I said, Annie, I forgot. I didn't know what her name was at the time. I forgot. I have to go to Good RX when I get back home. I've got to get a coupon. This is way too expensive for me to pay out of my pocket. Because my deductible is so high. And you know what she did? She pulled out her phone right then and there. And she said, well, hold on a second. I think the manufacturer has a discount. And she's like, what's your birth date? Give me your email. And she's just putting this all into her phone, just like standing there right then and there, taking like, I don't know, it was a good 5 minutes of her time. And people were behind me, but then her colleagues came and helped the people behind me. And you know what? She does all that, and she said, "It's only $100 off, but is that okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" And then I was shocked that somebody would go to that trouble for me, okay? But that was allyship. Ally is a status, allyship is action, and I've got to tell you, I was so grateful that someone, a stranger, would care about me. Now, I need to let you know, I have trained CVS corporate before, so just be aware of that. But I'm not telling you the story because of that. I'm telling you this story because people show up in your life unexpectedly doing kind and good things. So Annie's going to get a card from me. And a great boatload of written words of thanks. So there you go. Okay, everyone. Well, listen, a big thanks to my producer, Patrick. Patrick, you did great today. I really appreciate everything you do for me. My listeners, I hope you like this show. Will you tell others about it? I would love for this show to take off in one way or another. Please know I care about you. Will you go out and will you do good in the world? Will you go and try and make the world a little bit better? And I'd love to hear from you about that. Remember, elliejkrug@gmail.com. Until next week, okay? Go out. Be an idealist. Make the world a better place. Bye-bye.